We're live.
Have you ever wondered what was out there in the night sky? Stared up at the stars in the hopes of seeing something out of the ordinary? Have you ever heard unexplainable noises coming from a vacant room, or watched a shadow cross the wall in front of you? Have you asked yourself if there's life after this one, or if you had life before? What about strange creatures that are mythical and elusive? Have you experienced deja vu, or felt a prompting to leave because you felt you were in danger? What if tomorrow you were on the fringe?
Welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Mark. Philip is going to be out today. He had a prior engagement. But tonight, as you can see, we've got our regular part timers, Pam and Jess. And Pam has got another project going right now. If you would you tell us about Amok?
Sure. I am in with three other people now in a podcast. It's out every Tuesday evening at 7. It's called Amok Paranormal, AMOK. A is Arkansas, M is Missouri, O is Oklahoma, and K is Kansas. And we started 4 weeks ago. So last night we went through the first 4 episodes of just introducing the hosts. And starting next week, we'll start interviewing guests, basically. So yeah, if you guys get a chance, join in. It's going to be in regards to things that happen in the 4-state area. So if you know of anything, or if you're interested in that kind of thing, come join us.
All right, awesome. Tonight we're going to be talking about more evidence of ancient visitors to the Americas. Before that, I'd like to invite everybody to stop by our website. What if tomorrow? Uh, hold on, I just went blank. Whatiftomorrow.com and visit our sponsors if you feel like it. We've got Duke Cannon. I use Duke Cannon every day. It is amazing soap, amazing products. They've got all kinds of stuff for you to try. We've got EMP Shield. You know, we could have a solar flare, or heaven forbid, the world come undone. An EMP Shield will help you. We've got Conflicted the Game. Conflicted the Game. It is just crazy. It will
Fun.
really it will challenge your beliefs and what you think you'd do. It'll really challenge you. And then My Patriot Supply, whether it be food, survival gear, or what have you, stop by, see what they've got. They're amazing folks, and we got something new. Well, I guess it's not exactly new, but if you don't want to visit our sponsors, stop by buymeacoffee.com/whatiftomorrow and buy us a coffee. I mean, $5. It helps us put on the show. It uh, costs money to put the show on, and we would appreciate any help we can get and help us provide more content. With that said, as Phil would say, let's get on with the show. Um, so, out of place artifacts in the Americas, it's crazy. Let's start with the one that even the scientists are agreeing with. Oh, Chris says hi. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
And scientists pretty much agree now, since 1960, that the Norse came to Newfoundland in the year 1000 approximately. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack with just the Norse and Viking artifacts found across America. Um, the main site for Vikings in America is Lance Ox Meadows in Newfoundland. It's a small settlement, um, and there's new evidence that suggests it may have been there, and people visiting it for possibly up to 100 years. And they're saying that they've identified with satellite imagery there may be several more settlements that they have not excavated yet in Newfoundland and Canada. So uh, this is the one that they agree is real. So let's start there. What, excuse me.
In regards to Vikings in America?
Vikings.
Okay. I have been kind of focused on, there's so much when it comes to Vikings in America.
There is. We don't have to spend all night on it, although we easily could.
Yeah, 100%. And I know I'm barely scratching the surface on it, but if you're interested in this kind of thing, there is the Kensington Runestone. It's actually in a museum in Alexandria, Minnesota. And there is a 2-season show on it. It's called The Secrets of the Viking Stone. It's on Discovery Plus. I think I mentioned it last week, but I couldn't remember what station or what
believe you did.
stream it was on. It's actually Discovery Plus. I looked it up. Peter Stormare and Elroy Balgard are the two guys that are starring in this, and they're basically, both of them are Norwegian, so they have a vested interest in it, and they go through searching it, researching everything that they can find on it, and honestly, it truly looks like it's more than likely is not a fake, like it was proposed to be for quite a while. It was found in 1898 by a immigrant farmer named Olaf Oman, and he unearthed a large stone that was wrapped up in the roots of a large tree when he was clearing his land. And what they've discovered when they did some testing on it was the fact where the roots were wrapped around the tree had, as the roots grew, they kind of grooved into the stone, and that's seen in the stone. So that right there really lends a lot of credence to the fact that it was not a fake. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That's a really fun one. If you guys, if anybody has that, to check it out. And they really actually, runestones and Vikings hit closer to home than what people might realize. Heavener, Oklahoma. It's 200 miles away. It's about a 3-hour trip from Caney, where we're all located. And it's on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border, and the Poteau River runs really close to it. Poteau River empties into the Arkansas River, which goes over, basically it goes into another river, into the Mississippi, which ends up in the Gulf of Mexico, which there's ample evidence that pre-Columbian explorers came that route and went up the Mississippi, clear up into Minnesota, Michigan area, definitely in Oklahoma. And I thought it was really cool to find out that Oklahoma actually has the most runic carvings in the United States, which is pretty wild when you think about it.
That is pretty wild. And when you think about it, there's a lot of stuff along the Arkansas River and
tons
attached to it. Because think about it, if you come up from South America, the easiest way into the interior of the United States is through the Mississippi River.
Mm-hmm.
If you come over from Europe or Africa, you're going to run right into the Gulf.
Yep.
And there's this big giant river that's half a mile or a mile wide. Mm-hmm. You're going to sail your boat right up that sucker.
100%.
And the Arkansas River, at least when it's full, is massive. It is a large river. Mm-hmm. We have barge traffic come up from the Mississippi all the way up as far as Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. Catoosa.
The port of Catoosa. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even today, That is a way we ship stuff right into the middle of the United States, right up the Mississippi, right up the Arkansas.
which is
Right.
pretty cool.
Absolutely.
What else was I going to say about that? Oh, in regards, there is a Heavener actually has Runestone Park in it. I'm not sure if everyone's heard of it. Not a lot of people even know that that's a park that's in Oklahoma.
And it's a really nice park. I mean,
I haven't got to go there, and I would love to, but I was watching some YouTube videos on it actually earlier today, and it's quite a hike in and out of there. So if you have any limitations with walking, you might think twice before you go that way, and just kind of watch it on YouTube might be a better option.
I'll hike in.
Right? I want to, for sure. Someday.
Well, we could figure out some way to get you in there.
Oh yeah.
Get you one of those. We'll get
I've
you
got
one of
my-
those wheelchairs with the tank treads on it, so you can.
Oh, the ones that climb stairs. Those are
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah. There you go.
I would find a way to fall out of it. You know this. Y'all know me well enough.
else. We
Jess
got-
is laughing.
know.
Jess knows.
We know,
Super
Pam. We
glue.
know.
You'll stay in it. It's fine. We'll get a roll cage.
She
It'll be-
will, but the chair will tip over with her in it.
Probably.
Well, that's why we make the roll cage round, so she just keeps on rolling.
Oh no, I'd never
Oh.
stop.
There's a rock at the bottom.
Oh. Yeah, there is. There's a great big runestone at the bottom. I'd wipe out for sure.
I don't. I would roll down it anyway. I'm round.
It would be bad. It would just be bad. But yeah, we'll get there. I'll get there someday. I know when a lot of state funding, when government defunded a lot of state parks and things a few years back, even a Runestone Park did lose their state funding or their federal funding, and the state picked it up, and the local area have taken it over, and it's a labor of love for them because it brings a lot of tourists to the area, and the fact it's theirs, it's a part of them, and I think it's really cool that they've continued with it. Gloria Farley, she's a book that we have really talked about quite a bit the last few episodes.
Isn't that one of yours that's annotated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is one. I actually have a bunch of. Yeah. This is also part of Gloria Farley. She's the lady when she was, I think it was 1928, when her best friend and her best friend's father said, let's go out here, and I want to show you girls this thing. So they go out, and he had found this stone out in the middle of a ravine near Heavener. And they called it the Indian Rock because to them it looked, like something the Indians would have carved. And she remembers standing there and looking up at this thing and thinking how cool it was. Well, then it was like 4 or 5 years later, they were in Bible school, her and her best friend, and they had some booklet that had examples of Scandinavian runes in it. And her friend was like, look at this. This is what's on Indian Rock. This looks like what's on Indian Rock. And so she kind of filed that away in her head. And then later, once she married and they came back, they moved away from Heavener for a while. And when they came back, she's like, I want to find this place again. So her and her husband went out and they located it. And it looked just the same. Someone had put a little bit of graffiti on the back of it. So they found that out. But that kind of instilled in her the love of epigraphy is what it's called. And she pretty much spent the rest of her life engrossed in pre-Columbian research. And she found some amazing, amazing stuff. But, one of the biggest claims of a hoax on the Heavener runestone is the fact that it didn't follow exact. It was a mixture of elder Futhark and what's the other word for it, Jess? Elder Futhark, and there's two kinds of runes. It was elder and the other kind. Can't remember if it's younger or what if it's called it's I don't know. I can't remember. Too much in my head. But what was interesting when it was studied in a way that made it more of a date than words, it was legible at that point. And when she asked locals if they could tell her, if they could write out for her when they knew that they had first seen the stone. The story that she got went clear back to, the oldest one was back to the 1830s, when the local Indians had known it as oral tradition. And one of the families were like, this is what grandmother told us. And so then she had other actual eyewitnesses that went back to like 1898 at the time. So it had been around a long time. And if they can find more definitive proof on that 1830s date, that is well before any books were written on Scandinavian runestones. So that would be almost indisputable proof that it was faked. So there's a lot to it.
Right.
But I think it's interesting. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. The Kensington and the Heavener are the two biggest ones that I wanted to touch on. Jess, you got any?
There was one back east in a river that had a similar history. You used to be able to see it from a boat. I think they moved it.
Probably had to.
But there was records of it being seen earlier in the 1800s. So nobody's going to go out and carve on a stone in the middle of the river.
No.
For no reason. So
I have a handful of them here, and I'm going to start in Oklahoma too, because Oklahoma has so much in it. I had heard a little bit about these.
Red Dirt Cryptid says hi. Hi, guys.
Hey!
Hi. Is that you, Brian?
I'd heard a little bit about these, but I didn't know the extent of them. And I went and really kind of did a little bit of a dive on it. Have you heard of the Oklahoma Flatstones?
No,
I have not.
Yeah. So they started finding these in the late 1800s, and it wasn't until about the 1970s or so they realized that they had a collection of these. They call them the Oklahoma Norse Flatstones. And what they are is just little flat stones that are just found in various places. They haven't really been able to figure out any rhyme or reason to them, if they're mapping something or if they're pinpoints for something. But all they are flat stones with dates written in Norse, written in the runes.
interesting.
And I
Almost like a
wrote down the
waymarker.
dates. Maybe they're all they all go between 1015 and 1024. So the first one they found was marked December 25th, 1015. Then they found one marked December 30th, 1022. They found one marked November 11th, 1017. One December 22nd, 1022, and November 24th, 1024. They have no idea what they're for. And they're spread out all over Oklahoma, near rivers mostly. They're kind of spread out, and there's a couple of them near the Arkansas, but the other ones are up near other places. They are, however, near like creeks. They're near water, but that doesn't mean anything. That could simply mean that's where they were at, because you want to stay near water when you're traveling about.
Right.
So
I wonder if
the interesting thing about that is that they've proved that that settlement in Newfoundland was probably started around the year 1000. So that would be right in the where you're looking around trying to find. They were over here doing the same thing everybody else was. They were looking for resources. They were looking for, place to live. They were, they were Vikings.
Yeah.
That's what they did. They
explored.
Looked around.
Yes, they did.
Hey, what's over here?
And another interesting thing that I found in Oklahoma that I hadn't heard of was it's not on the Arkansas River, it's on the Canadian River, which I thought was kind of interesting because you don't hear a whole lot about anything being on the Canadian River. But they actually found not runes, but a carving of a Norse ship in the rock wall past the river. You can see it when you go by on the river. It's fairly large. And I just thought that was really interesting. You hear about all these runes in Oklahoma, but you don't hear about actual like art type carvings. And they said
So
it was quite obviously a Norse ship. It was shaped just like when it had the sails like it was supposed to, and blah blah blah.
That's really interesting because just recently, someone had sent me a picture of a petroglyphs out in western Oklahoma, and in those, one of them does appear to be a ship, and
Well,
it's
maybe
well,
that's
way
one and
up
the
high.
same.
Maybe
and it's
it was.
possible that those are from eyewitnesses who saw the Norse ships on the rivers and
Mhm,
decided to depict them.
could be.
Now, moving out of Oklahoma on the Norse part of it anyway, I found something. I don't have the pinpoint right now, but I can totally find that out later and send that to you, Brian. I'm assuming this is Brian. It's Brian or Jeff.
I think it's Brian.
And for those that are listening and not watching, his question is, where did you hear? Where along the Canadian did you hear about the ship carving?
So
Yeah.
I'm interested in that as well because that is within striking distance of
Hmm.
us.
Yeah.
I would love to go see that.
That would be
Although
awesome.
it's since I
Road
can't
trip.
swim, I
Road
probably do
trip.
not need to be on a boat.
So let's trip over towards Kentucky. Kentucky is another hotbed of ruin stones, and that makes absolute sense, is what Mark was saying before. If you're going to travel up through the U.S., you're going to take the Mississippi, you're going to take the Arkansas. Those are the two big ones. So heading up towards Kentucky, I found something so interesting. I was so excited when I found it. So I'm looking for these out of place artifacts, and I think I found the best one of all. I found a body.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this happened in 1932 near Louisville, Kentucky. They had a mound there. There's thousands of mounds there. They were excavating and found the remains of several Indians and one Viking warrior, all buried together. Right?
Wow.
Now,
Nice.
right? So this like intrigued me. I was like, how did the heck did they know it was a Viking warrior? That's a little bit of a stretch. So I dug into it and I found all the details, and it's so exciting. It's so exciting because something that this dude did have, they actually put into a museum and studied it. And they said it is Viking, but they're doing the whole, well, it must have been dropped off right into a mound. I don't know. Anywho, so
Right?
uh the Viking warrior was buried with the Indians. He had blonde hair, he had a full beard, uh, blonde. He had a full metal shield that was Viking. He had a full Viking sword. He had a Viking knife and a Viking helmet on.
That's why they call it the
Nice.
Viking warrior then.
Yes. Now here's the dismal part. Authorities came in, ripped up the site, and everything went missing but the shield. The guy that had been in charge of excavating the mound got a hold of the shield and got it to the proper place where it could be protected and they could study it. And it was verified that it was very old Viking. Of course, the site is now gone because they bulldozed it. But the amazing thing is just 3 years later, they found nearby something that told why he was there. So they got, they got their proof. Nearby, a few years later, they found 3 rune stones in an embankment, and they were easily decipherable. They had been like face down, so they were kind of protected. It said a contingent of warriors have become shipwrecked on the coast and have made their way westward, dying one by one from sickness and hostile Indian attacks until they came to Hear the River. Apparently, in the second stone, I couldn't get the full decipher off of it, but basically it was saying this is the last man of this group. He has befriended the local Indians and was buried in this mound.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
So did he carve his own effigy?
Tombstone?
I think what has happened here, they said the stones were a little bit different. I think that he was the one that wrote the story of the contingency coming across, and he was the last one left. I think he wrote that about himself. I think the second one, because they had more trouble deciphering it, was probably one of the local Indians that he was friends with, had taught him enough of his runes, of how to write. And that's why it was so hard to read. It was probably mixed in with some of the
he
local
had
Indian.
a local wife. And
maybe.
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very poorly done. And in fact, because of that is one of the reasons why they said, oh, it's a fake, you know. But it kind of tells the story. There's no way he wrote that himself and then buried himself with those other Indians.
Oh, no.
And it didn't say why he was buried with those other Indians. It may very well be that maybe they were all sick, or maybe they were out in a hunting party, and they got killed by another tribe, or I don't know.
He could have wrote a note and had them copy it.
He could have.
I mean, scratch it out. Say, here, put this out there.
So a few other ones that I have, and I don't have a ton on these. I did find enough information across to kind of verify them a little bit. So in 1887, up in Washburn, Wisconsin, on Lake Superior, they found a Norse nail and a Norse belt buckle, also buried in a mound. So in an Indian mound. So you're wondering if they came over and made friendly, and were just kind of hanging out.
No, I mean, why not? That's what they did.
Or they traded. Yeah, or they traded, and it been passed down through the Indian tribe. This one I thought was really interesting. This one was partially in the water. It kind of reminds me of the Lady of the Lake or whatever. They found a full Viking sword, half in like a pond, April 20th, 1911, west of Ulen, Minnesota. So we're starting to see that they kind of just spread out everywhere.
Right.
And
that's
they
what
dug
Vikings
up.
did.
Yeah.
My mother's maiden name comes from the word North Scot, which when the Vikings moved in and conquered something, within 2 generations, they were gone because they'd intermarried and took up the customs of the people they were living with and just disappeared because, that's what they did.
That's funny you say that. I ran across something that kind of sort of goes along with that, where it talked about Vikings today are more Viking than the Vikings were back in the 1000s, 1500, way back when, because they would either intermarry and bring wives back with them. And so a lot of the Vikings DNA back in the day had a lot of Irish, Welsh, Scottish in with their blood, in with their lines, because they were bringing these wives back with them when they came home.
Right. Or staying and just melting into the populace, over a couple generations.
And that guy,
that's why there's so many blonde redheads. And
yeah, exactly. I was telling you about this earlier. I've been following Donald Yates on a lot of stuff. He's got some fascinating work on DNA. And he was looking at proving a lot of what Rafinesque said in his the stories that he wrote from his oral traditions that were passed down to him. He's the one that wrote the Annals of Kentucky. He's finding a whole lot of proof that what Rafinesque was told is actually true because of the DNA markers in the information that they're finding. It does match, like Minoans. There's a lot of Minoan DNA in the tribes that are around Michigan, copper mines, things like that. And that's another one of those that, did we lose Mark?
We lost Mark.
Does that mean we lost the feed?
I don't think so. Keep
Oh,
going.
good. Okay. That, now I lost my train of thought. Okay. The Minoans, there's a lot of their DNA in the tribes that surround the Michigan copper mines and things like that. And that goes along with what Mark was talking about, with there being a lot of proof that these travelers came from, like Minoans would have been from Crete. They would have gone through the Pillars of Hercules, which we know now is the Strait of Gibraltar. And they would have come over to the Americas, gone up the massive rivers that they found, and traveled on up through the Americas. And that makes sense for them to come. They would have been able to follow the currents, make it over on a relatively, it's kind of like jumping on the expressway back in the day. They'd jump on that, they'd hit the Gulf of Mexico, and then they could go straight up the Mississippi and then off into the smaller branches. And another interesting thing about the copper mines in Michigan is the fact that it's the only copper mines in the world that I could find information on that has 99% purity in the copper. And the amount of copper that was taken out of those mines is so huge. And what they found in the native tribes is so minute that it had to go somewhere. And they have found that particular copper in Egypt. They have found it in Turkey. They have found it in Greece. They have found it all over the world, which if you look at the fact they came through, they picked up their copper, and they may have picked up a wife too at the same time, and gone on out. They could have gone straight north and gone around through like near Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and around that way. And that's where they're finding a lot of copper there too. And on top of that, in that area, in the Hebrides Islands, Lewis, settlements like that are up that same way, you will find evidence of mummies. So we know that Egyptians went that way too, because there was this thought of how did these mummies come to be when they're mummified the same way that Egyptians were? Well, it's because they were in that area. They didn't just to have this massive consciousness that everybody knew how to do the same thing at the same time. There was a trade of the knowledge, or the actual people themselves was there.
Cool.
I'm back.
He's
Sorry for the
back.
janky internet connection.
I think I'll be all right.
Yeah.
All right, what have I missed?
Brian put some interesting stuff on there. He said he always thought that the Phoenicians were the ones that worked the copper mines. Yes, there is evidence of that, but when they're going back through the actual DNA evidence, they're finding out it was Minoans, which, you're coming into a really close group there.
Yeah, they were intermarrying.
Mm-hmm.
The Phoenicians were everywhere.
And he also said that's where Europe and the Middle East Bronze Age metals came from. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right.
We're glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. I am sorry. The last 2 weeks, I have had nothing but internet problems.
We were discussing that earlier too. Mine's been kind of janky.
Yeah,
So, but I'm glad to be here too.
It may just be our carrier. We share the same carrier, and
I think you're right.
I may have to go with that Gigablast or whatever it is just to get a good connection. I don't know.
Ugh.
I may
No,
just go Starlink.
that's what I'm interested in.
I've
there's
got a
another
good view of the sky, so I
Yeah.
did the little test, and I can hit at least 6 satellites from my house. So
There's a huge parking lot just to the south of me, so hopefully I'd be able to as well.
that'd be cool.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So what are we on to now?
Where do you want to go?
Well, where are you going? Well, there's evidence that the ancient Romans may have come to America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can do Roman. You can
They
do
have
that.
found a Roman sword, Legionnaire's whistle, part of a Roman shield, and a Roman sculpture off the coast of Canada, or off an island in Canada.
Cool.
So then I've read several things where they found uh, random Roman coins, in riverbanks
Oh
and
yeah.
whatnot.
There's coins everywhere.
I mean, that's be the number one thing to lose. Dang it, I lost all my money.
Or it'd
So
be a cool thing to trade,
And we didn't even
it
have
could be.
casinos.
Yeah, well, if you're in a place like North America where you may have coins with you and they're not going to do you any good in this land that you're in, but people that are already there, it's something fascinating to them, so it might be something easily tradable.
Trade it
Yeah.
as a souvenir or whatever.
Mhm.
So I found something cooler than coins. I found bodies again.
Yay.
So yeah, Muhlenberg County, Kentucky.
How often will you hear us say, I found a body? Yay.
I found a
I was
body.
getting ready to say, I mean, maybe we should get you into the police force. You're all the time finding bodies.
Well, thankfully, I didn't find these personally. I probably would have been pretty grossed
Phew.
out. So it was two spelunkers in this cave in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. It was the mid 1800s. They were exploring this cave, first time anybody been in it, and they found the remains of 4 Romans. They were completely dressed as traveling Romans. They had the full getup. They were all petrified. They weren't mummified. They were petrified. That's how they could tell who they were.
Wow.
The insane thing isn't the 4 mummified Roman bodies that they found. The insane thing is with them was a 5th body, but it was a monkey.
A monkey? Really?
4 Romans traveling with a monkey.
That sounds like a joke. 4 Romans and a monkey walk into a bar.
It does. It sounds like the start of a really bad, trashy joke.
Well, I mean, it could have been a pet because, the Romans were all about zoos and, I mean, they were the ones that really got into the exotic pet first, I think. They kept lions and tigers, oh my. So, yeah, I can see that. But yeah, you're always seeing that this random Roman coin shows up here, or there, or whatever.
Did you guys know that they found a Roman coin in Heavener?
I did not.
No, I didn't know that either.
They did. So it was in 1976. They found a bronze. I can't remember how to say this. A tetra. I can't. There's a name for this coin, and I can't ever remember how to say it. It's a tetra something. And it was completely readable. It was an original one struck in Antioch, Syria in 63 AD.
Wow.
And it had the profile of Emperor Nero on it.
All right.
Hear
me out. Maybe the Romans didn't come to the United States because, think about it, the Vikings raided everywhere, and we know they got as far south as the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be possible that they just had some with them and happened to lose some here or there?
Maybe they stole them for the 4 guys in the cave with their monkey.
They may have. I mean, maybe they stranded them there.
Maybe.
Could be.
But I mean, the Roman Empire predates the Vikings. So, and there was contact. We know there was contact. So some of these things may have been just dropped by Vikings.
Very well could be.
It could be. I found another one where maybe some trade had happened. They found a handful of Roman coin dating from 800 AD at the bottom of an Indian mound in Texas, in Round Mound. A whole handful of them. So
yeah,
perhaps
it could be trading.
they were trading.
Well, we already
Yeah,
discussed, people are going to go where they can find money. If you can find an untapped market, somebody's going to find it and somebody's going to trade with it.
yeah. I'm looking here. I have so much stuff written everywhere. I so didn't have time to
Miranda
get it
says
all.
she's like that girl on Hallmark Channel show where
Yeah.
That's the truth.
that's funny.
There's so much stuff for everybody
Oh,
that's
yeah.
listening or watching. Pam and I are having an awful time doing this because literally, I mean, well, like here, I'll show you. Just page after
Oh, yeah.
page after page. Look at this. Just
Yeah, we've got this is
right.
just so.
And when you're hunting up this stuff, it's never all in one solid, nice, simple area
No.
for you to look through. You find it in bits and pieces, and then you have to go and track down all the
Chunks here,
information
chunks
on it
there.
and make sure that it wasn't just some little blurb somewhere somebody made up.
Yeah.
You find it something that corroborates it. And so you're
And
finding
try to
some
make it
Kentucky and then
cohesive for the show.
and Texas, yeah. And then my problem is half the time I'll find something and I'll realize it has something to do with another one that I found elsewhere. So I have to go back and find that. But there's no way to add that one to that one. So you're like, make a little note to yourself, go look at page, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
And it's insane. But that right there just tells you how many of these artifacts are just in the US. Now, if you had asked us, Mark, to go outside of the US, Pam and I'd be dead right now.
Yeah.
We would have.
I know because I've found all kinds of stuff that was found nowhere where it should ever have been. And I just ignored it because I was just trying to find stuff in the United States, North America, South America.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy.
It's absolutely nuts.
Just before you got on, Mark and I were talking that there's so much. I haven't even hit a quarter of what I have in front of me. Try to fit into the last 3 shows. And we were like, we could make a whole podcast just about out of place artifacts.
There's people who that's all they talk about on YouTube and whatnot. I mean, I get it. There's just so much. It is ridiculous to think. I mean, there were people here for tens of thousands of years. They got here somehow.
Yes.
So it's ridiculous to think just because we only have records of this and that those were the only people coming over here. It doesn't take much. A storm blowing you across the Atlantic. We know how hurricanes are. They start over by Africa and move up the Gulf. There's no reason why they couldn't have pushed boats all the way up to the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, and look at the Gulf Streams. You pick one up, and I think you were off for a bit, Mark, when we were talking about this. It's like riding an expressway, and they could pick one up really close right after they got out of the Straits of Gibraltar, which back in the day they called it the Pillars of Hercules. They hit the Straits of Gibraltar, they get out into the open ocean, and they can hop right on one that will take them right just neatly up to the Gulf of Mexico. There you find the Mississippi River and you're home free. You can go straight up there. And that's what they are showing that they're pretty sure is what happened. I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head.
And all the genetic evidence.
Gavin Menzies, he talked about, that's what he is putting with this, because he looked at the fact the Isle of Lewis up in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, up in that area. It's completely devoid of trees, but they know from archaeology that there were trees there, at one time. What caused the deforestation of that area? Well, if you think about what would have been used for in such a huge amount, that you could cause it to just be gone. And it's to build ships,
Build and repair,
And so if they're coming out, they're trading, the copper. They're trading different things that they're finding in America that is being found in burials in Europe
Right.
that came from North America way pre-Columbian. Yeah, you can see that, how they could have just jumped on that other Gulf Stream, gone straight up around the Isle of Lewis, around the
Big Willie
Hebrides.
says it's like the turtles from Nemo.
100%. You're right. That is the best. That is the
Dude.
best. Dude. Yep. You're 100%.
Yep.
That's
I mean,
exactly what
it
they
makes
did.
sense. It is, well, I can't say it's the height of human arrogance because we can be pretty freaking arrogant. But to think our ancestors weren't smart enough to go where the money was.
hmm
I mean, there's money to be made. Somebody's going to make the trip.
Well, and
Yeah.
for us to think that our ancestors weren't smart enough or had the technology to get around the world. I mean, just because they used not the same technology that we use now, they had, plenty of ways to interact with the world around them, and not just the world around. They had access to seaways that went straight into the oceans. We know that.
Look up the bark of the sun, I believe it is, that they found
Mhm.
buried in Egypt. And they studied this. They said it was totally seaworthy. There was no reason it could not have made the trip.
Yes.
If it was on the ocean, there was no reason it could not have made the trip.
In just not even 100 years ago, there was a British archaeologist, and he went, trying to find my notes here. Story of my life, can't find my notes. Here they are. His name was Arthur Evans, and just over 100 years ago, he was the one that was like, there's something up with where Crete is, or where it was, basically. So he went and found some ruins there, thought it would be worth the time and the effort to do some excavations and see what they came up with. And they found a palace. And it ended up being, once they started digging, it's 3 times the size of the British palace.
Yeah,
it was
Manoa.
huge. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. He named it. He named the people there the Minoans. That's where that came from, because you've got the story of the Minotaur and the labyrinth and things like that. The cool part is, under that palace, they actually did find a labyrinth. So
that's where the legends come
yeah,
from.
that's
Right?
where the legends come from. There's always a bit of truth, when you get into those legends. May not be the entire truth. There may not have actually been a Minotaur, but the fact that a lot of what it was built upon is true is really cool.
Right. Well, the best stories are based on things that actually exist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you write about what you know. I know that there's a labyrinth beneath this palace. I'm going to write a fantasy story about it,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's going to love it.
Yes. I mean, look at things. And he felt, and there's a lot of proof for it, that the Minoan culture was actually one of the most prolific and the most civilized at the time. What brought their demise about was the fact that they were right in the middle of a volcano. The volcano erupted, followed by an earthquake, followed by a tsunami, followed by another eruption by the volcano, which completely almost wiped out their landmass, number one. But number two, it darkened the skies, killed all their agriculture, which killed all their food source, which just, led them into complete and utter destruction at that point. So, they had this great civilization, and it took really not that much to bring it to its knees.
It doesn't take that much to knock any civilization down to its knees. All it takes is
Does not.
one event or one series of events just to wipe everything out. And it's why I'm so excited. I have not watched it yet, but I am so excited to see that Graham Hancock series. I mean,
I have
Ancient
not
Apocalypse.
watched it. Yeah, we're going to have to watch it for
Yeah,
sure.
that's going to have to be a group. We're going to have to do that.
That'd be a fun one to do for sure. He did say, if you look, and this is kind of where I was going with this. Let me bring it around because I just remembered what my point was. Just so everybody knows, I'm like super tired and I drank coffee, and caffeine and I don't get along very well. So I'm just like squirrel. But he knows that they developed a culture that was based on sea trading from the not the paintings, what are they called? The frescoes, the things on the walls. Help me out. I'm dying here.
Things on the walls.
They're made with yeah. Pictures.
Mosaics.
Thank you. The mosaics that they found.
You go, Mark.
It's rough.
Way to be honest.
For reading my mind.
I speak man. It's okay.
Thank you for saving me. From the pictures on the walls, they had seaworthy boats, seaworthy ships. They're right there. They've got the correct sails on them. They've got everything that would have been seaworthy. And they also, they had olive oil. They made gold and silver jewelry. They had all kinds of agriculture and wine things that can be traded, which is why it's found throughout the world, not just Europe.
Right. I mean, I stand by my, if there's a coin to be made, somebody is going to make it. It doesn't matter if it's dangerous. It doesn't matter if it's stupid. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000,000 miles away. If there is a coin to be made, somebody's going to make the attempt.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And you know what's really cool? They found some clay tablets. They still haven't been translated fully. They don't know what they say. So there's still information to be found there for sure. There's information to be found everywhere. But just in this particular instance, I'm curious to, hopefully they'll get that done within our lifetime. We'll know what it says.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool. Let's see. I was not able to spend as much time doing this as I wanted to. Do you guys have anything strange?
Oh, yeah.
For us?
I've got a good one. In fact, we were talking about boats that didn't exist to get people everywhere. I think I found the most amazing kind of boats there could ever be. Ones that carried African elephants.
That would be a
pique your
big
interest.
Boat. Yes.
Okay, so
a big boat.
I was so excited when I started finding this, and it sent me on this crazy path. So take a ride with me, because I think this is going to be exciting for everybody. I'd never heard of this before, and it's been kind of a well-kept secret. It's so well-kept secret that it took me a little over a week to get what little bit I had. I really had to do some digging. So in Flora Vista, New Mexico, in 1910, this is right near the Four Corners area, if anybody's interested. There's a lot of ruins in that area, especially on the Arizona side. And there was a boy playing in the old ruins, 1911. And he stumbles across two small rock slabs. One of them was 14 inches long by 6, and the other one was a 6 by 6 inches. Get them out. They managed to find somebody to take a look at them, and it didn't match any of the local Indians' scribbles. In fact, I don't think there was any Indian tribes nearby that made anything like this. And it took a gentleman coming along from out of state to take a look at them, and he realized that it was not Indian, that it was writings from the Mandi tribe in West Africa. Right?
Oh. Cool. West Africa.
So
Gulf Stream.
It gets crazier. So he was able to decipher these two slabs, and they are now called the elephant slabs because there were elephants there. So before I tell you what the slabs say, I'm going to move on because there's more to this story. And there are elephants actually like drawn onto these slabs, and they are African elephants. They're not like the woolly mammoth, the ancient ones that you would see. These are literally our versions of the African elephants. So they're not ancient. They were here not that long ago. A little ways away, and this was found by Frederick Bennett in 1885. So this would have been a little bit before then. In the Indian ruins right near where these stone slabs were found was a thing called, they ended up calling the Montezuma Valley jar. And the really exciting thing about this jar is it did not match the artistry of jars made by the locals, the local Indian tribes. It looked African also, and it had a huge elephant drawn into the side of it. A full elephant. That's all it had on it, was just a big elephant. People were saying, oh, this is fake. There was no African elephants here ever, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Big Willie says, man, I
So,
would order an elephant slabs if they were on the menu.
All
I
right.
can see
well,
him doing the
Flintstone.
Red Flintstone, yeah, on the car tipping over.
yeah. So
Hello,
oddly
forensic
enough,
myths,
uh,
mystics.
oddly enough, there, they ate these elephants. So I'm going to get into this a little bit. I'm going to read to you what they deciphered from the slabs. They have it all deciphered, because Mandy tribe writing is very well known. It's widespread because they did a lot of traveling. The first slab said, the desert is hot. Birds are numerous, white, just as the go bird in our language. The elephants are sick and angry. At present, the sick elephants are considerable. Life is spent removing the sick elephants dried up by the sun. Many are sick. The dead elephants are pushed down into a hole and buried, and sealed on the flat terrain adjoining the bed of the river at the dry place. The zone of induction. My existence at the present family habitation is lean. On dry land adjoining the bed of the river, break up the terrain for elevation, and there cut the hearth. Break to pieces the flat land to carve and make the family habitation, warmth, water, and sun. The second slab says, uncultivated land, hunt the birds, cook the elephant. It is easy to roast. Grow on the flat terrain the maize and uncultivated land. There are also bears. So basically what these slabs are saying is that this Mandy tribe came into the area. The elephants were not accustomed to this type of terrain, and for the arid, dry weather, there wasn't enough food for them. I actually looked it up. Elephants have to eat like 400 pounds of vegetation a day just to live.
Yeah, so this would be a bad area. It'd be a bad area for them. The Fort Stewart area.
Exactly. So the elephants are dying off, and they have to start eating them, which is actually very sad for them. That's why they wrote this. I went and looked it up. The Mandy tribe are very close to elephants. Elephants were kind of considered like how we consider dogs and cats today. Not only were they used for work labor, but they were pets. Families kept these elephants for years and years and years. They were part of the family. So to have had to watch your elephant die and then eat it because you didn't have enough food would have been
like cooking lassie.
Exactly. So both the elephant slabs, Valley Jar, and elephant engravings were also some of these were also found in Nevada, Tennessee, Utah, and Florida. And of course, the Four Corners area is the Mandy tribe. So now that we know African Americans traveled over with their freaking elephants, traveled up the Mississippi over into the Arkansas, and came up into the Four Corners area. Now, here's something very interesting. In my hunt to see if I could find anything else on this, I found that at the time in the I think it was like 1500s, they had missionaries kind of traveling through those areas. And they have journals that these missionaries wrote talking about these black-skinned communities living with the Pueblo and the Zunis and the Navajo side by side. But the interesting thing was is that they took note that these tribes did not know each other's language, but they lived with each other and they had created this sign language to be able to communicate back and forth. And they lived amongst them. They had their own gardens. They worked with them, but they never mixed. There was no children ever of these tribes. So at some point, they must have gathered up and left, and they never integrated with the Indians. And that's why you don't find any of that West African in the ancient or the older Indian DNA chains. They never ever mixed. I also found a few references, and I can't say for sure because I could not pinpoint it, but there were an awful lot of elephant burials they found up in the Mississippi along the banks and up into Kentucky. They were all assumed to be ancient elephants, even though some of them had the smaller head. A good portion of those were found in the 1800s when they didn't know a whole lot about what they were looking at.
I see.
And I have an assumption that maybe that Mandy tribe had split off and part of them went up the Mississippi and the other half went over the Arkansas. And I'm guessing that probably the ones that went up the Mississippi fared a little bit better with the elephants. They probably would have had a lot more to...
There's more to eat, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So another interesting thing. So I'm looking through all this today.
Big Willie says
No.
like pygmy elephants.
No,
but there is evidence of some pygmy elephants.
Yeah. So all over the U.S., we had ancient pygmy elephants and woolly mammoths and regular tusked elephants. They had very bulky heads, though. African elephants, while they're one of the largest species of elephants we have now, in comparison to these older ancient elephant species, they have kind of a smaller sloped head to them. And that's how you can tell the difference.
I see.
Yeah. So I decided today, I was like, I'm going to go look up the Mandy tribe itself and see if they have any kind of history about taking elephants on ships. And they do. In fact, it's purported that that's where some of the war elephants came from, and they took them up to be used during the
Hannibal.
Yeah.
We came across the Alps with the elephants. So yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if they were breeding elephants and woolly mammoths, kind of like breeding a donkey and a horse. No. So what I'm saying is when they dated the two elephant slabs, they dated them to the early 1500s. And it's not because they had carbon dating at the time. If you think back to your history, when was the time that they started bringing over slave Black Africans into the US? It was in the early 1500s. That's the only reason why I got it dated that way, because they assumed they had to have been written by slaves that had been brought over. It was never actually dated. I think it's actually much, much earlier than that, but it's not in ancient times. So we're talking before the 1500s, but not ancient times. We're not talking about clear back into Egyptian.
Right.
So this is actually, in the grand scheme of things, it's much closer to us than that. So
well, you know, there's all kinds of evidence that, you know, as early as the 500s, there were Europeans coming over here. Why not the Africans?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And sadly enough, and I hate to say this, and I apologize to anybody who's listening to this that thinks that this is something I shouldn't be saying, but I found a whole lot of naysayers, especially in the Black communities, not wanting to hear that there may have been free Black Africans here before that time. it's so ingrained in their history that they were not here until the early 1500s because of the slave trade. There's a lot of people, especially in the Black communities, that kind of poo-poos all of this, that there was anyone of color here before then, which simply wasn't true. I mean, they had Black travelers with the Spanish who came in earlier than that, traveling
Right.
up through the Americas. So, and they were free. Some of them were not. So back to what I was talking about. I went looking today at the Mandy tribe, and I found the information that they had elephants on ships. They made specific ships to hold these elephants. And I will say these elephants are a little bit smaller than what our African elephants are today. They've gotten quite a bit larger. So not quite as huge. They could still get a few on a ship. But the
Well, they
most
may have
interesting,
picked smaller ones.
yeah. So the really interesting thing I found, I wasn't even looking for this. I ran onto it by accident, and I was so excited when I read it. I actually wrote down the little piece of it. It came out of a book called Maze and the Mandy Myth by M.D.W. Jeffries. So I'm just going to read this little segment right here. The Mandy, a people occupying what has been called the Buckle of the Niger, have a beautiful and complex creation myth that includes the appearance of maize and its eastward migration with them down the Niger to Lake Debo. The occurrence of the myth in groups now widely scattered in the Sudan suggests great antiquity, and where migrations can be dated, a time long before the discovery of the Americas. Implied this implication casts doubts on the traditional view that maize was introduced into Africa by the Portuguese after they had obtained it from the New World. They had maize long before. So were they already sailing back and forth and trading with the Americas long
I
before the
actually have some
Portuguese
info
got
on
there?
that too, on the maize,
You know,
different things.
this just goes with everything else we found, that there was definite contact between the New World and so-called New World and the Old World.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there was probably evidence of this in records
There
that
is.
was intentionally destroyed. I'm going to go out on a limb and blame it on the Inquisition.
When Jess hits a stopping point, just keep that in your mind, and I'll add more to it on the information I have.
Okay, I'm almost there. It did make me think. So when I found the information on them already having the maize, and this is a very old book that's also been poo-pooed too, sadly enough. I went back and realized it had said within one of the slabs, it said maize.
Mm-hmm.
As if they already knew what they were doing with it. So if they just showed up there, the elephants were starting to die, but they already knew how to deal with the maize. They already knew.
They had experience with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the other thing I found on this, and I could probably find more, I will continue looking into this because I think it's just so amazing and something you don't hear about. I'd never heard about it. And Four Corners is so close to us. How have we never heard of the elephant slabs? There being African elephants in the U.S. at that point. The only other thing I found, and it's a little off topic, but not. So, have you guys ever heard of the Brazil tablet?
No.
No? It's very controversial. It was almost shot down immediately when they found it because they said it was in too good a condition to be old. But where it was found, I think it was probably very well protected. I think basically it just went to the wrong people when it was found, and it was automatically shot down because of it. But it was made. It was a tablet found in Brazil with a full Mandy carving, a carving of a Mandy person with script all around it. And basically it says that the Mandy tribe colonized a little section of Brazil during the Middle Ages.
Oh, wow.
Well,
yeah. Which for anybody listening who doesn't know, the Middle Ages fell between 500 and 1500. And the implications are, so this little area where they found this tablet at does look like it was occupied by somebody other than what we consider the locals there at that time. And it is interesting to note the Mandy tribe was really beyond some of the other tribes. When you think of African tribes, sometimes, bless you, Mark.
Get it together,
When-
man.
When you think of
Distemper.
African American tribes, a lot of people automatically assume, oh, they lived in the desert areas with their little, and they shot arrows or, the Mandy tribe were very advanced. They built stone houses and walls and walkways, and they were just as advanced as anybody. And they found a lot of this there in this section of Brazil. So the Africans were everywhere too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of evidence. It just keeps piling up. I cannot, for the life of me, believe why or understand why people keep poo-pooing on this stuff, because there's just so much evidence. And like I said, it's just the arrogance of these people to believe that their narrative is the only narrative.
Willie had a good point. He just said, okay, random thought. Do we think it was actually the Dark Ages, or did some powers that be eliminate the knowledge to make it the Dark Ages?
That's one of my favorite topics.
Yes, I think it was a combination. Some of that was actually from catastrophes, natural disasters and things, not things back. But there's more.
Yeah.
It just has.
There it is.
Yeah, it just has it.
I love that topic. We will totally do a show on that at some point.
Yeah. But yes, people were knocked back
Intentionally.
at different points for sure.
Well, and we've got all these stories, and this is the middle, or not the Middle Ages, but from 1500s on, the Spanish Inquisition. What years were those? 1500s. They have records of where they burnt everybody's records.
Yes.
When they got over here. So, I mean, why is it so hard to believe, oh, there would be a record if people came over from Europe? Well, yeah. And then the Spanish burn them.
Mm-hmm. They got rid of everything.
They burn them and broke them. And
Spanish Inquisition was established
1400s.
November 1478.
So
you're doing the same thing I was doing, Jess.
I feel ashamed. I didn't know that off the top of my head.
Me too.
Well, I knew it was 14 or 15. It's in the neighborhood. So, yeah, I mean, everything was Satan, but the church has all this power and they want to keep that power.
That was it. The word power, you nailed it right there. They wanted power is what they were after. They didn't want to, they weren't worried about people's souls at that time.
Spanish Inquisition was
conquer and take over.
All about corruption and wealth. Is all it was about.
Even if you go back to Europe and look at when the Church of England invaded Wales, Scotland, Ireland, what did they do? They got rid of everything that was there. They took down the temples.
Burnt the books.
Yes, they burnt the books. They killed the Druids. They took down all of the sacred places and built churches on them.
Yeah.
They took over all the festivals and turned them into Christian festivals. That's why everything has pagan roots.
And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm probably going to piss somebody off, which it never stops me. I'll say it anyway. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say everybody who burns books is some kind of evil, because I despise the destruction of information in history.
I work in a library, and one of my favorite sayings is there should be something in the library that will offend everybody.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. I don't know why everybody is so worried about offending other people. I don't give a crap who I offend. People who get offended by everything offend me. So are they going to, they don't care about me. So why should I care about them?
Yeah.
But I don't care. I'm not going to go out and burn. I don't agree with communism. I'm not burning communist manifestos.
Mhm.
I mean, I just
Because by burning communist things, that it will be erased from history and we won't remember after a
and
while.
then we'll do it again.
Yes,
No
100%.
matter how
100%.
shitty something is, it needs to be kept
Yeah.
because history will repeat itself.
Do not erase history, because then you end up with crap like this, where oh no, that never happened, but we've got evidence that it did. No,
People
that
say
never
the Holocaust
happened.
never occurred. What?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
And
it
that's,
did.
that's recent history.
Very recent history.
Mhm.
But it's
There's
just
still
far enough
survivors.
off, it's just a few generations off, just far enough for people to be able to say, no, that's not true.
No,
No,
don't
100%
destroy history.
happened.
Then you end up with this crap.
Yeah. It's like, did you know, like they did, I read this a number of years ago, but I had read they'd done a survey in schools in the US, and like some outrageous percentage was like 80% of kids thought that Anne Frank was a made up book.
Yeah,
Anne Frank's
it's
diary.
ridiculous.
You're kidding.
Mm-mm. They
See
think
what we've got
they
here.
thought it was like a fiction book.
Wow. You can go to Amsterdam and tour her house. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't her house.
Yeah.
It's the house that they hid in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I
it
mean,
was not made up by any means.
I was at Dachau. I have seen Dachau. Is the most depressing, horrible place that you can even think of. And most of the buildings are gone now. It's just flat now. But it's forever marked.
No,
That
I'm sure.
horrible place. And
You want
to
to
think
talk
that
about
we're
an energies that's left behind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
to think that we're allowing children to think that communism didn't happen or that Anne Frank wasn't a real person is disturbing on so many levels. It makes me fear for what could be coming our way. Not in our lifetimes, obviously, but beyond our lifetimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, history is a big wheel. It keeps just turning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Is it
this
going to
is
play
Sunny.
out all over again?
I think at Paranormal Chop Shop. I'm
Yeah.
not sure which one of you has this account, but he says his wife told him that they don't teach the grandkids about slavery in school right now.
That's
Mhm.
insane. I don't
Isn't
understand
that crazy?
And see, I exploded when I found out about that. I believe we have to teach our mistakes so they're not repeated. Absolutely.
Mhm.
He who knows nothing of history is doomed to repeat it, and
Mhm.
that's what they're counting on. It's what they're
Exactly.
counting on.
Ugh.
Ooh,
Okay, let's
anywho's.
turn to
Yeah,
more
let's get back on
interesting-
topic because this is
Yep.
getting dark.
less depressing for sure.
Yes.
I don't know. History's filled with depressing, but
It is. It is for sure. Too much.
so,
Okay, so Jess was talking about maize and things like that being found out of place, basically. So I kind of want to turn it to India now, East Indian. And this is taken from Gavin Menzies' book, The Lost Empire of Atlantis. And it's a really interesting book, and it's not nearly as dry as some of the texts that we ran across. This author actually wrote the book from his and his wife's perspective as they began their research and as they travel. So as you go from chapter to chapter, you kind of along for the ride, basically, on their discoveries. But in chapter 18, he called it The Truth is in the Trade. And he says, in India, I discovered that the beautiful rock carvings and paintings of American bison that had been found on the borders of Kerala and the Tamil Nadu, and I'm probably massacring those pronunciations, near the point where the PR River rises, they were dated to the second millennium BC. And he goes on to say, let's see, he talks about emeritus professors John Sorensen and Carl Johansson, both academics, have documented a considerable amount of intercontinental trade before Columbus, as has Dr. Gunnar Thompson. From their work, he found there were largely 6 categories of goods for which there is substantial proof of trade. That exchange was between India, Egypt, the Minoan Islands, and North America in the era of Hatshepsut's expeditions to the east. That is during the 2nd and 3rd millennia BC. They have documented that maize was transported from the Americas to Egypt and to India. Descriptions of the origins of this maize was given by Indian and African peoples. That cotton was taken from India to the Americas. That tobacco and drugs transported from the Americas to Egypt via Thera. And squashes and fruit shipped from America to India, and that gourds were exported from India to America. And Professors Carl Johansson and Professor Ann Z. Parker contend that stone carvings of maize exist in at least 3 pre-Columbian Hoysala stone temples near Mysore. Professor Johansson has also found the sunflower, another New World crop, in pre-Columbian Indian temple sculptures. Their conclusions were supported by a separate research project that was undertaken by Indian botanist Professor Shakti Gupta of Delhi University, and they agreed. They identified, Professor Gupta identified sunflowers, pineapples, cashews, custard apples, and monstera, all of them from the New World species in pre-Columbian art of India. So Indian and African people believed maize was first brought to their countries from Mecca, in the case of the Indians, and from Egypt in the case of the Africans. Both these descriptions would make sense if you look at the fact that the Minoans had known exactly how to get to America. That is really interesting. And I brought this up last week too, about the tobacco beetle. This is kind of where I first found that information, and I kind of latched onto it because it makes so much sense. There is nevertheless evidence in the form of the tobacco beetle. Let's see. He first encountered that it was buried beneath 1450 BC volcanic ash of a merchant's house in the Minoan city of Thera, which is modern day Akrotiri. I'm killing these. I know I am.
Yeah,
You're
I make
correct on
no
that one.
apologies.
It's
I
Akrotiri.
can't do those either. So I barely speak American.
English.
English? I don't know what.
The Latin word for tobacco beetle is Lasioderma sericorn, and it was indigenous to the Americas. It's been found, that particular beetle has also been found in the tombs of pharaohs who clearly smoked it. They found it in Tutankhamun's, good Lord, King Tut. They found it with King Tut. And they also found it in the visceral cavity of Ramses II. So that's pretty crazy. Gavies believes that the carriage of tobacco and the tobacco beetle is another signature card of the Minoan voyages to the Americas and back, as well as to Egypt and to the Mediterranean. So that was pretty cool.
Manoa. I mean, how long ago did Manoa exist?
Well, in Plato's time, which is ancient times, it was an ancient civilization then. So,
okay. So it would have existed about the same time as Atlantis would have. So it would probably have been part of that empire.
It very well could have been.
You know, so I do believe that Atlantis was a real empire, maybe not an island continent or an island city, but I believe it was a real empire. I mean, and I believe that probably Minoans were part of it or friendly with them. And there's no reason to think that they were not able to cross the Atlantic.
No, there's not.
They were absolutely able. And I was gonna say real quick, in the Mandy tribe, I went back through their histories real quick, and it has Atlantan roots in it too.
That
in fact,
be a bit.
If you guys ever get a chance, just go look up the history and the myths, the mythology to the Mandy tribe. It is so much like ours. I was freaking out. They have witches that look like owls when they're seen by people. They have black-eyed kids. They have ghosts. They have kind of like what we consider like a Men in Black. It's like reading all of our myths, or legends, I should say, only read out and kind of how they would discuss it. It's really interesting. But yeah, their mythos, their origin stories come from Atlantean background. So I would imagine. they were quite capable of doing all this stuff. I mean, if you think about it, they were probably a superb tribe if they
Oh, I'm
already
sure
knew
they
how
were.
to build rock homes and walls and roads, and
And
were
ships that
capable of building
would
ships
carry
that
an
could move
elephant.
elephants,
I mean,
and were trading and building in other countries long before. So, yeah, crazy.
That is
Pam, you were
crazy.
talking about maize and other things that were indigenous to the Americas being in other places. I
Mhm.
found a lot of instances, besides the elephants, of things being in America, like the horses. You guys found
Mhm.
all the stuff on the horses. I found a really interesting one in Jackson County, Kentucky. This place is called Big Hill. Um, a well-used wagon trail wore down enough to uncover a layer of sandstone that held 300 million year old tracks. 300 million year old. Several prehistoric creatures, including bears and horses. Now, for anybody that's listening, who doesn't know the history of horses, supposedly horses were not introduced into the Americas at all until the 1400s when the Spanish came in. The Spanish supposedly brought the horses with them. The
Mhm.
Indians didn't know anything about them. Supposedly, they had never even touched the soil.
Yes.
So the crazy thing, besides finding horse prints, which they've actually found all over Kentucky, beside the horse and the other prints, they found human prints alongside it too. And it's not a carving; they're actually indented. You can see where it pushed
So it's
the sand.
fossilized.
Yeah, you can see where it's pushed the sandstone, and you can see the creases of the toes. They said the
Nice.
only difference in the footprints between modern day footprints is that these were a little bit longer than our feet today, which isn't
Mhm.
saying a lot because a lot of people have very large feet. So it's
Mhm.
not out of the ordinary. They did say that the toes spread a little bit further than usual,
oh,
but that
no
could also
shoes.
be no
Yeah.
shoes, but they were also walking on what would have been sand at the
Mhm.
time. So
So to
if you
balance
think about
themselves, they would be more likely to,
if you
yeah,
go
dip their toe.
barefoot on a beach, you're going to
Mhm.
spread your toes out a little bit more just to keep
Mhm.
your footing, especially if
Equilibrium,
it was
yeah.
Yep.
soft. Yeah, so I thought that one was really interesting. And in 1938, so they found that in 1885. In 1938, they found a whole new section just about a half mile away from that section with even more um, tons of horse prints, and they said they were normal, just like horses of today, the regular hoof prints,
Mhm.
all through there.
Cool.
So apparently, it was probably part of a river beach or something at the time.
Mhm.
So I thought that one was super interesting.
That
Yeah.
is cool, and that does not surprise me one bit that they're finding stuff like that.
Well, then you start getting into the O parts for uh, really ancient stuff when humans weren't even supposed to have existed, and you find the stuff that come up in drill bits and coal seams
Mhm.
and whatnot, and that's a whole nother series of shows. It's
Yeah, I ran
Yeah,
we're
across.
it
talking
is.
fairly modern for the last
Yes.
10,000 years or so, but I mean, when you start doing that, I mean, we're
That would be another fun one to do because I ran across some stuff, and I'm sure you guys have heard of this. It's kind of a common one, and it's somewhere in Oklahoma, where they were busting apart a big chunk of coal down in a mine, and when they did, a silver cup fell out of it, um, and in the middle of compressed coal. How
I've
did that
seen the
get there?
carved brass bell that they got out of a coal
Hmm.
mine.
Yeah,
Um,
Mhm.
and something that was
The
like a
hammer
wheelbarrow.
in Texas, the hammer in Texas
Yes,
was
yes.
in the
so either
yeah.
it does not take as long to make coal as they say it does,
Hmm.
or there's time travelers or people
Or
from
there's
another
actual
dimension or
civilizations that were back that long ago that you
Yes.
cooling,
haven't
or
heard,
Or
there's humans,
things that we could
there
actually
has
recognize
yeah.
today.
I think there's
space
probably been
aliens.
many civilizations before us that have come and gone.
Oh, I'm sure there
Um,
are.
and I think it's kind of like the history thing. History keeps repeating itself.
Hmm.
I think they rise and they fall. things start over again. Cataclysms happen with the earth and things get wiped out, so it starts clean again.
Yes. I mean, when the earth, the temperatures change in one part of the earth, like glaciers are melting, which is rising the sea levels, which is going to encroach into where man is now. So that's going to change things, and it already is changing things.
Oh, wow,
So
we're in an ice age right now still.
Places on the coast are going to start, going underwater. And when they do, what are they going to look like in a million years? They're going to look like ruins. They are going to be ruins.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be people then maybe on a podcast or something similar talking about the ancient ruins found off of, the coast of whatever.
I was just watching a YouTube video today where they were looking for off the coast of Spain, this temple site or whatever on this island, and the lidar showed them where there was this huge city where the island sunk or flooded. Mm-hmm. There's this huge city that was there, and all of a sudden they stopped researching it because we didn't want to know anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I've seen the lidar scans. It looks like a city with streets and sewers and storm drains.
When we're talking about things like that, I have another article that I came across. It's out of Missouri, and it's an East Indian artifact too. And it's called Missouri's Mystery Weapon. And it talks about the summer of 1952. Some boys were playing down on the riverbank in northern Missouri, and they noticed this large, peculiar shaped thing in the water. So they went back to town and told everyone. So someone that did some salvaging brought out some chains and pulled this thing out. And what it ended up being was this huge grindstone. But when they flipped it over, there's this thing stuck to the bottom of it. And it was kind of a bluish, it was, they called it an unusual conglomeration of bluish mud with the merest suggestion of something else slightly visible trapped inside. So this man had the wherewithal to go ahead and take this home. And he started putting it in this bath of cleaning solution. Well, he kept changing that out for like 6 months, and it took him another month to kind of carefully wash away all the last remnants of this clinging material so he could start working with it. Now, it ended up, what he found was a weapon. And it says, slowly withdrawing it from the curved sheath, he was surprised to see not one but 3 blades emerge. The peculiar triple threat measured 14 inches from the point of its center blade, the largest, to the extreme end of its handle. So he kept it. He didn't know what to think of it. But for the next quarter of a century, he couldn't find anybody. He would, ask people as he could. Couldn't find anyone that could identify it until he met David McCune, who is a Utah metallurgist with 35 years of experience. And what David determined was the unusual weapon had been manufactured by heating its steel. So underscoring what it came down to was it's a late Dark Age forging process. His analysis showed that the Missouri knife was between 1,000 and 1,200 years old. The object, based on the percentage of copper in its mineral composition, McCune believes that the object came from India, possibly sometime in the 9th or 11th centuries. And when he looked at the carvings and things on there, that kind of gave more evidence to it. They feel that it is probably evidence for the arrival of seafarers from India more than 1,000 years ago. So, and that's right there in Missouri, northern Missouri. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I can't see. I know some of the stuff is probably fake. Some of the stuff is probably
This is really cool. I don't know if you can see it or not. This is my low tech stuff here, but you can see the blade there.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool.
It's very cool. And then on the back, I don't know if you can see the carving.
That's a very Indian style.
It is very Indian style, but it's really neat. It's great. Oh, there's that one down there. That's really cool.
But I can't imagine that it's only been, even if we just go with the Vikings, that since 1000.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think that they were the only ones to make it this far. There's just too much evidence that says that everybody made it over here at one point or another. The Irish. We talked about down there the Anubis caves. There's ancient Irish writing down
Yes.
there from the Mithra sect.
Yes.
They worshipped
Mhm.
bulls. They're an offshoot of an Egyptian group.
That kind of
So-
goes back to Gloria Farley again too. And you bringing that up, she found Cernunnos along the Cimarron River, who was the god of the wild. You know, it's Celtic god. And that was cliffside by the Cimarron River in western Oklahoma in 1979.
Yeah, I mean,
The antler.
everybody's been here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that genetic study you were talking about the other day, it pretty much says everybody's been here.
Yes,
And
definitely.
a lot of them stayed.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
They did. Or they
Obviously, I've been finding burials, you know.
Yeah.
We talked
Yeah.
at the last show, I found an Egyptian burial with a full cartouche talking about how anybody who came by there was going to have to give an offering or they were going to be smited by Ra. So
Yeah.
And
I
we
don't
kinda
think
let
an
it go-
Indian tribe made that up.
No,
I
they
don't
didn't
think they did
pull that
either.
out of their ass. No.
Yeah.
I think it was Brian that asked earlier on, and I apologize, just remembering that I was going to bring that up, Brian. He asked what we thought, might have been Willie, what we thought about the possibility of an underground city being under the Grand Canyon. And I know that there is tales of that, you know, where they could follow it for miles and it would come out in Northern California, you know, and
Yeah,
that
I've
it
heard
was
those stories.
accessible from different areas.
That's that 1909 thing. They
Mhm.
found-
You know what? Anything's possible. I know so much of what there have been ample evidence found of underground cities, not only in Europe and different places, but in North America that have
there's
been
a
covered
lot
up
of it.
almost immediately.
Yeah.
Willie
I'll
said
tell
that
you,
was red dirt, so that it was Brian.
I wouldn't be surprised if we found freaking dwarves.
No, wouldn't mean it.
I wouldn't. You know.
I mean, we got goblins in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay. So have you guys, you and Mark, heard of the Beverly Mystery Stone?
No,
I have not.
Well, you should have because it's in Kansas.
really? Where?
Yeah. In
Yes,
Beverly,
where?
Kansas. It's
I
in a
don't even-
little
I didn't
tiny
even know
town
that-
called Beverly, Kansas. I'd never heard of this before, and I found it on accident today. I think it was like meant to be or something.
Big Willie says I have his axe.
So this thing was found in 1931. And if you care to go look it up, Mark, you can. This thing is amazing looking. I couldn't find I couldn't figure out how to pull a picture off to show fast enough. I was kind of running out of time.
Beverly Stone, is that what it's called?
Mhm.
Mystery Stone, Beverly, Kansas.
All right.
So it was dug out of a field in Lincoln County, just outside of Beverly. It's dated to circa 500 AD, right?
Mhm.
It's completely inscribed. It's raised. It's gorgeous looking. And it's all in ancient Gaelic.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
And the inscription loosely says, because Gaelic is a very old language, it's really hard to transcribe over to like our English, because we have
Right.
different types of words for things. But basically, it was a grave marker for someone who had died there. So it was obviously a grave at one point, and this was all that was left. And you can actually go and see it. So they gave it to a local museum, even though, of course, the naysayers came in and they're like, "Oh no, it's nothing. It's a fake." Because
Mhm.
I don't know why would somebody want to bury a fake Gaelic stone out in the middle of a field in Kansas.
Yeah. Well, that
Cool.
that's the most That's the most obscure thing for somebody to
Exactly.
decide to try to fake.
Yeah. But this one, unlike a lot of the other stuff that we've been talking about tonight, is available for the public to see, and you can get up close to it. It is on display at the Kine House Museum in Lincoln, Kansas. And you
Road
can go
trip.
take a look at it. It's gorgeous looking. I wish I had the photo of it, but
I'm trying to
I
find a good
was
photo of it.
totally
All right,
shocked.
I've
I've
got a poor
never heard of
photo of it.
this.
I'll share it.
Okay. I was like, wow, how have I never heard of this? This is insane.
It's not terribly large either.
It's not.
No, it's not.
It's just a little marker. But it's in fabulous shape. And I'm guessing I've kind of seen
There we
looking at
go.
these, yeah, that ones that are found like face down are usually in fantastic shape. They just don't take the weathering
Right. Makes
Right.
sense.
like some of these do. Yeah.
So it's an interesting looking. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really kind of
Mark, if you click
tiny.
that link, it'll make it bigger. That
Oh.
circa whatever link it was off to the side of it. Sorry. I spoke too.
I'm not the greatest. Well, let me see.
You're better than me. I just hold stuff up to my camera.
Me
All
too. I'm
shaky
like
like.
super low tech.
I'm
Here's
like,
Well,
whatever.
it is
can you see
actually not a bigger picture.
There's not
Oh,
a
is
bigger
it not?
picture.
Is it the same
They-
size?
It's the same
I'm sorry.
size.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
so that one I found interesting. And going back to Egyptian, I'm going to touch back real quick, even though we did that last show. Because you remember the last show we were doing Egyptian, and I was trying really hard to find something up the Missouri beside rock art that was Egyptian, and it was really hard to find anything. But I did find something on accident again. I just ran across it. So in 2007. They found a small Sphinx head outside of St. Louis.
Yep, they did.
Oh, you've heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
I was
have.
completely amazed by that. It was an amulet-sized Sphinx head made of yellow quartz and include columns of square glyphs up each side of the face. So I thought that one was super interesting
cool.
too.
Big
There's
Willie
been
says
a-
what's really intriguing him is that it almost looks like on that mystery stone, almost looks like a cutout that would hold a book.
Mhm. Yeah, it
So
kinda
it wouldn't be
does.
a message; it would literally be the title of the book that was supposed to be there.
That's kind of cool.
That
Yeah,
is. That's intriguing.
Ooh, that's kind of
fun.
like Indiana Jones's. Like if you had the correct book to place in it, like a
Yes.
boulder would roll out of a hill somewhere and take you out.
It might.
I don't need to
never
put
know.
anything in a special place because I've almost killed myself with boulders many times.
There's one other I want to hit on before we end it tonight too,
Okay.
and that's the Chinese.
Oh yeah,
There is tons and tons of evidence on Chinese and Asians in general being in North America pre-Columbian times.
and they were excellent seafarers. And
Absolutely. There's tons of proof of that, tons of evidence. And this is something that was in Gloria Farley's article in Ancient Discovery in 2006. She says, contrary to most historical records, seaworthy ships filled with old world people, swarmed both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans even before Christ. One of these voyages by the Chinese in 2225 BC is proven because they returned to China and left records of America, some of which still exist. So there's actual existing today records of the Chinese having been in America in 1225 BC.
oh, and you know what? The Chinese were not only were they meticulous, they were almost psychotic about keeping records of everything.
They were. Yes.
They
and
really
which is
were.
wonderful
They
for
were the
us.
original bureaucrats, and they were very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
did you see that? It's not the same deal, but I mean, we're talking Pacific. Did you see the spear point made out of yellow obsidian from South America that they found in Hawaii?
Yes. And it was taken away immediately, and they were threatened with felonies if they didn't give it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There is
So-
actually, I have one. I have a mound found in Kentucky that was full of glass weapons. All the arrowheads and the spears and everything in it were all made of glass.
Yep.
And tell me what Indian tribe had figured out how to make glass. And why would you use it to make
Arrowheads?
just insane?
Well, they would have been probably for ceremonies or something, or gifts, or
Probably, but I don't think they had the knowledge at that time, or the at least the local Indian tribes didn't have the means.
well, they may have been able to
make
carve
glass.
like lightning glass.
Oh yeah, off of beaches,
Maybe.
possibly.
It's possible.
Something else that she pointed out too was the oldest evidence that she had in her own research was called the Granby Idol, and it was accidentally excavated in Colorado in 1920. And Gloria Farley owned 3 original photographs of it that were made before 1923. It was 66 pounds. It was a Chinese effigy, and it now cannot be located. It was supposedly donated to a museum in St. Louis. It had a plain inscription on its belly, which has been identified as pre-Shang oracle script. The Shang dynasty was 1600 to 1050 BC. And low techie, here we go again. Here's a picture of the effigy. That crazy dude right there. It was 66 pounds, and it has disappeared.
Wow.
I would imagine that probably was not disappeared on purpose. I bet that's in somebody's private collection.
Probably. It was supposedly sent to a museum in St. Louis, but I'm sure it got waylaid somewhere along the way, it sounds like.
I do believe I will be keeping that and show all of my rich snooty tooty friends.
Yes. And again, going back to Dr. Donald Yates, the geneticist, that I'm really digging his stuff. He found some matches that were, he studied Native American DNA, finding what he believes may be genetic links to colonists from China's ancient or medieval periods of history as well. And there's this whole article called Did the Ancient Chinese Make Contact with Native Americans? That
Big Willie said he thinks the Smithsonian handled the travel for that object.
It's, you know what? The Smithsonian's probably moved all the stuff that they have stolen under the Grand Canyon in those huge caves and ways that nobody can find now.
It's all in.
I have a good one.
Warehouse 13.
Right?
I
love that show.
I have an empowering story for us that has the Smithsonian kicking their own butt.
Yay.
I like it.
Okay. So this piece is called the Bat Creek Stone. Okay. So this thing was found in 1889 in Tennessee. The stone tablet was found in an undisturbed mound in East Tennessee during an excavation sponsored by the Smithsonian. It was declared the small tablet to be Cherokee. Wooden ear spools and copper artifacts found with the unusual burial were also thought to be Cherokee. In 1972, several I think they're called epographers. I think that's how you say it. And experts in ancient Semitic inscriptions had declared the stone depicted a Paleo-Hebrew inscription. So not Cherokee.
Wow.
A letter-by-letter comparison made between the tablet, the Cherokee alphabet, and the ancient Semitic script known as Paleo-Hebrew shows that it actually refers to a star prophecy. They had the copper, and they have it in parentheses, copper and wooden artifacts found with the tablet analyzed too. Now, here's the kicker. Listen to this. I had no idea about this. So when we're doing our research, we need to consider this fact. Virtually all metal artifacts found in mounds were called copper in the 19th century. They didn't check them. Apparently there's a lot of artifacts in museums and stuff today that have never been checked. They just call them copper.
So
The
they could be
reason why they
bronze
say
or
Yeah. So the reason why they stated this is because the Smithsonian's own analytical laboratory tested the copper and found it to actually be leaded yellow brass alloy. It contained 27% zinc and 3.3% lead. The British Museum matched the alloy with artifacts found in only one place in the world and only during one time frame, right? It had been made in the Middle East between 45 BC and 200 AD. The wooden
Nice.
ear spools were carbon dated to 437 AD. This was 1400 years before the Cherokee alphabet was ever invented.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
They did
The
tell on
back,
themselves.
yeah, the Bat Creek stone was a genuine ancient Hebrew tablet. And unfortunately for the Smithsonian, they did this all publicly, so they couldn't refute it.
They couldn't back. Yeah, they couldn't.
they screwed themselves up. But then
They did.
they made sure that it wasn't publicized.
Oh, it was
Oh,
publicized.
that's crazy.
It's one of the ones that they can't like. They
They
can't go back
publicized
on.
it and then they quickly buried it.
They
Yeah.
tried to bury it, but people know about it. It's
Mhm.
it's not a
What
part
I'm
of their
saying is-
open
yeah.
collection, but
Exactly. Yeah, it's not.
they
out there
did that
for the
one to
public.
themselves. Yeah, because
That's
I
fun.
think they probably thought they were on a different route and it was gonna come up with something completely different, but they did it publicly.
Ooh.
So, ha ha ha.
Well,
You know, I'm sitting here still reviewing information that I hadn't got around to getting through before the show. And
I know
talking.
that. Just so you guys know, so that and butt ton of stuff that I have found on this came out of Gregory L. Little's Mound Builders. This is a
Nice.
fantastic book. If you have any interest in out of place artifacts or kind of secrets kept about our history, odd things found here and there that shouldn't have been there, get this book. It's one of those ones you can't put down. You start it and you think, I wonder if this is going to be dry and analytical and stuff, and it is absolutely not. It's so interesting.
Absolutely.
Yes, you
Willie.
do, Will.
Awesome.
Big Willie, you come down here, I will feed you, and we will have a good old time.
We will.
That would be awesome. You should try to
I
bring
will
a
take
marathon.
I will
That would
take
be great.
vacation time if I have to hang out. I can't travel very good. Right now I don't even have a car that works, but
That sucks so bad.
it's in the shop.
Ugh.
The sun shop. The sun does all my mechanic
Aren't
work.
you?
But
Yay for
I
independent
think
if you
children.
come down here, we will entertain you thoroughly.
This is what
Yes.
I wanted to bring up real quick.
Yes, Big Willie. Barbecue.
absolutely.
Mostly because it's Oklahoma Panhandle petroglyph. It's got it is a Chinese script thorn, circa 1300 BC, and it's that bottom one.
Yes,
That's pretty spot on, isn't it?
that's pretty spot on.
Did you see that, Jess?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Oklahoma Panhandle. It looks like a little bit of everybody came through.
Oh, it's right in the middle.
The Oklahoma
was.
Panhandle is the crazy ass place.
Yes.
It's insanity there.
I wouldn't be surprised if Flight 19 showed up in the middle of the panhandle. I mean,
Well, it's kind of no man's land, honestly. You know, there's a lot of things out there, a lot of petroglyphs for sure. The Anubis caves are out there.
yeah.
On top of other petroglyphs that we know about. And now we're finding not only Celtic, because Kiernanos is found there, but you've also got the Egyptian, and now we're finding Chinese too. So it was kind of a well-known travel route, it sounds like. So where were they going? If they were going along the Cimarron, where were they going?
Wherever the money was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's about. Trade
Yes.
makes people explore.
Yes,
We go
it
to other stars, it's going to be not because we just want to see what's there. It's going to be see what can we bring back.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. The grass is always greener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can
You're
we
always-
get?
you're always going to be moving to find, because you're always expecting maybe there's something even better, an even better place to live, or some place with better resources right around the corner. Let's keep going.
More gold,
Well,
more
you know,
copper, more iron, whatever.
people think that everything on the earth has been explored. No, it hasn't. I mean, especially in the sea, especially deep sea. There's stuff down there that we have no way of getting to at
And
this
our,
point.
There's
our
parts of the
civilization is going
Amazon.
to crumble
Yes.
someday, and they'll be discovering it all over again.
hmm
Yeah, there's parts of the Amazon that we've never stepped foot in.
What is
We
it
know that
like?
there's entire tribes that live in there that
Yes.
we've never seen, and they've never seen us, you know. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
I can't remember how many cities, thousands of cities that they have found in the rainforests, just by use of LIDAR and you know, even Google Earth has helped find a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
Big Willie says South America and
Yes.
Antarctica are two of the most unexplored continents in the world, in his personal opinion, and I believe
Mhm.
that is also factual.
Yes,
Yes.
So,
100%.
and even Africa is highly explored, and we still find new stuff there all the time.
hmm Well, yeah,
Because it gets covered up, and we dig it up again.
it does. I mean,
Or-
look, like just in Rome, just last week, they were working on they were tearing down a building to build something else. And when they did, they found a whole fresco underneath that they're going to have to stop and look at before they do anything.
Right. I mean, we cover stuff up, we dig it out again,
hmm
and it's all new.
Yeah,
It's all new.
it's pretty cool.
Guys,
It
I
is.
hate to be the
We're coming
be the
down to the
party
wire.
pooper.
Oh
But-
man.
I have a 3 a.m. alarm that
Ooh,
I'm going to have to meet. So
yuck.
All right. No
you guys,
more.
you think we have scrambled everybody's brains enough?
I hope
Mine
so.
scrambled completely.
Oh,
I'm
here
pretty scrambled.
I'll scramble you on one more quick fact. I found this while I
One
was
more.
floating through my stuff. I missed it earlier. Going back to the Norse really quick. We'll leave
All right.
everybody with this little fun nugget. In the last 200 to 300 years, they have found over 300, think about this, 300 Norse mooring stones, the stones that they use to moor their boats to the embankments. They found over 300 of them in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Illinois. Now, how you
So-
refute that, I have no idea.
They sailed up the Mississippi and down the tributaries and moored their boats and lost them.
Yeah.
Just
300 of them.
Well, for them to actually put in more stones, that tells you how much they planned on using that point, you know.
let's trade some furs here. Let's get copper
Mhm.
from these
Peace,
people.
love, and taco grease. Awesome.
Good to see you, Will.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, buddy.
You
And
said you're going to come
do.
visit us. Now you have to.
do
Yeah.
make it down here. Let us know. We will
Yeah.
we will
You should
entertain
come
you
down for
thoroughly.
the Paracon.
That would
Yeah.
be cool. Even
Do
if
it.
you can't like come down, if we could get you to like Facebook in or something, you know.
Yeah, we'll get a
Live
big
stream you
TV
in.
down there and
That would be
have
so
him
fun.
StreamYard in or something.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool.
It'd be awesome. September
Or he could just
30th.
come down here and be part of barbecue night.
September 30th is the date, Willie.
Yeah, we're gonna have a barbecue the night before. So
Yep.
Yep. Stargazing, beer, and
and
drink some
boys,
food. Yeah,
And
with all of the speakers coming in. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
all right, folks. Well,
All right. I'm closing my book.
Yeah.
I'm going to close mine. It's been quite a ride. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I hope everybody goes out and does their own research and continues to keep blowing their minds, because we're being fed a pack of inaccuracies and sometimes outright lies by, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not the corporate media, or something. It's academia,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody needs to look into it because there's just too much evidence for it to be nonsense. So,
And don't
with
take
that
everything
said,
we say with a grain of salt. You know,
No,
not
do your
we could
own,
be totally wrong. I'm
do
wrong
your
all the
own
time.
research.
do
And
I'm
your
wrong
own
all the time.
research.
I'll put up a list of the research materials that I used. I think, Jess, you were going to work on some too, weren't you? To put up
Mhm.
what you've used.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put them up on the
Yeah.
page. That'll be great.
So if you want to look at what we've looked at, you can draw your own conclusions. And if anybody out there hears of more stuff that we didn't cover, let us know.
Yeah,
Because
because
just because we're through with this doesn't mean we're through with
Yeah.
yeah,
And
we lived through this.
FYI, just putting this out there, we did not talk about everything that we found.
Oh,
No,
not
we
even
haven't
a
even
quarter of what we found.
touched it.
I stopped today at 5 because I had to start making dinner. If I
Mhm.
hadn't had to make dinner, I would have continued. And I didn't even get through everything that I researched. There's no
Yeah.
way. There's a billion times more things that we could go over. So do your
Mhm.
own research. You're going to find some outstanding things, especially whatever area you're from. You're going to be able to find even more than what we do. So
100%.
exciting.
It's everywhere.
Even if 1% of the stuff that we found is true,
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
I think it's way more than that. I think it's closer to 90%.
Mhm.
Even if 1% is true, it changes the whole history of America,
Mhm.
the world.
Yeah, it does.
It does. History is so much
So, with
better
that
than
said,
the crappy books we had
check
in
in on us
elementary
again on
school.
Monday for
Oh, I
yeah,
think we
those
lost
books were
Mark.
Oh,
totally
there he
full.
is.
Oh.
And
We're
I'm
losing you,
about
Mark.
to lose the internet, folks, because I'm blinking in and out. All right. Before you lose me again, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
And let's see if I still know how to run my computer.